Hello guys, welcome to Captain Dorja's Armory. This is Captain Dorja, and today I want to take a look at a battle replay featuring this ship, the Tier 7 American battleship, the USS Colorado. Now, I have progressed past the Colorado onto the USS North Carolina, the Tier 8, and I have sold my Colorado, so for the overview of the ship, I will have to use the tech tree instead of the actual ship in the port. So we're gonna be looking at the stock hull, but we'll be able to compare the upgrades because the tech tree system in this is quite a bit better than in World of Tanks for this sort of thing. Now, I do want to say that this is a replay from the previous patch, so it's a little bit wonky, and I've had to make this recording like 98 times because my volume settings have been all over the place. So if the volume in this video is kind of jacked up, I apologize. I'm doing my best, and I've actually put in way more work on trying to get this right than most of the time. So I apologize if it's kind of more crappy than usual, but I want to get this video done, and I'm getting a little bit annoyed. So what you get is what you get in this case, and I apologize for that. So anyway, the Colorado. Now the Colorado is the Tier 7 American battleship, and it's generally considered to be one of the worst battleships in the game for a couple of reasons. Well, I'll talk about the weaknesses of this ship afterwards. I want to talk about what makes this ship good first. The first thing that makes this ship good is it's fairly tough. The Colorado, fully upgraded, has 50,100 health, and it has reasonably strong armor, and the armor scheme on the ship is of the all-or-nothing armoring scheme, which means the armor is focused on the gun turrets, the barbettes, the magazines, and the engine room, and that is really about the only parts of the ship that are actually armored. But that's actually good. It basically means that the places where you really don't want to take damage are the hardest to damage, and everything else, which doesn't matter, if you get hit there, the best the enemy's going to accomplish is an overpen hit, which doesn't do very much damage, and you can really survive those for a long time. So the ship is reasonably tough. What's a little bit odd, though, is if we take a quick look at the Nagato, the Japanese Tier 7 battleship, where is she? Here she is. You can see that the Nagato, fully upgraded, gets an additional 14,900 HP, which I think is odd, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. My guess would be that the Nagato, not being quite as well armored, would be more prone to taking larger damage hits. But that's just a guess on my part. I honestly don't know why the Colorado gets 15,000 less health than the Nagato, but it does. But even with 15,000 less health than its counterpart, the ship is still fairly tough, and if angled properly, or even angled halfway decent, you can take hits from some pretty dangerous guns in the ship without going down. Although in the replay, spoiler alert, I will be ruining a Colorado who doesn't angle at all. So if you don't angle this ship at all, you're going to regret it. The other strong point of the Colorado is it's got a really good AA armament, with 33 of these single 20mm guns. Now with no upgrades, they only have a 2.1 kilometer firing range, but with the skills, the commander skills, you can get the range of these out to around 3 kilometers, and if you use the AA range increase module, you can get that to go out even farther. I didn't use the range increasing module, I used the gun range increasing module, so I didn't have quite the max AA range, but you can get pretty decent range for these 20mm guns. But the real dangerous guns are these 40mm Bofors guns, and she carries 5 twin mounts and 6 quad mounts. The quad mounts on the fully upgraded hull are located around here, and the twin mounts, there's 2 on each side and 1 forward of this armored bridge. Also, on the fully upgraded hull, you get 4 per side for a total of 8 5-inch 25 caliber Mark 19 guns, which are mounted right here. The The secondary batteries are reduced. You don't have you don't have all of these you don't have all of these 5-inch secondary batteries. I think there's only 4 per side, but that's still pretty hefty. So the AA on the ship is pretty good. If you are driving a tier 6 or lower carrier and you have the option of attacking a Colorado, you should honestly probably look for a different target, because against lower tiered airplanes, the Colorado's AA is fierce, and you will take a lot of losses going after the ship. Another kind of strength of this ship is it has a pretty strong secondary battery with 8 5-inch guns per side. That's a pretty decent secondary battery. It's not like you'll be killing tons of dudes with it, but you know, if you've got a low HP destroyer coming after you and he gets within about 5 kilometers, you can do some pretty good damage to them with this ship, and at least make them think twice about attacking you. Also, the Colorado is more maneuverable than you would expect, with a pretty quick turning circle, a pretty short turning circle, and even though it looks horrible here, with the top hull, the rudder shift time is only 15 seconds, and if you use the module to increase the rudder shift speed, you can cut that down to about 12 seconds, which is pretty fast, actually. I will say that driving the North Carolina with the stock hull and stock engines, I'm surprised that it's not as maneuverable as the Colorado. The Colorado actually turned faster than the North Carolina, so that was a little bit of a disappointment for me. But that's the major strengths of this ship. There's really only one other strength that I wanted to talk about, and that's the damage output of these guns. This ship is the first American battleship to be armed with 16-inch main guns. On the New York and the New Mexico at Tier 5 and Tier 6, we had 14-inch guns, but up here we have 16-inch guns. You've got 4 turrets with 2 guns apiece. And these guns, when they hit, oh my god, they hit hard with a Citadel damage potential of over 12,000. I believe fully upgraded, it's 12,400 damage per hit, which is a lot. Also, these guns have pretty good penetrating power, so you can get through quite a bit of armor with these guns. Now, these guns, their damage, how hard they hit, is a real strength for this ship, but these guns are also the primary weakness of the Colorado, in that they're not very accurate. The Colorado suffers from a lot of gun dispersion. With the upgraded fire control system and the module to increase my gun range, I was able to get my guns to fire out to about 19.5 kilometers, but the dispersion on the shells at 19.5 kilometers was somewhere in the neighborhood of 270 meters, and that is a lot of dispersion. So that's one reason why the Colorado is generally hated, is because the guns are very inaccurate. But what I will say is that if you know how to aim with your battleships, you can really negate poor accuracy by placing your shots so that they're going to land in the right general area. That way, if they scatter a little bit, it doesn't really matter. One of them's still going to go where you want. And with guns that deal 12,400 damage maximum hit, you only need one shell to go where you want, and you can really mess up the day of your enemies. The other main weakness of this ship is it's quite slow. With the upgraded engines, it only does 21.4 knots. And I will say that at Tier 7, this was the first time where I really felt limited by that speed. And the American battleships from Tier 4 to Tier 7 are, every single one, slower than their Japanese counterparts. The South Carolina can only do 18 knots, and then from there on, the Wyoming, the New York, the New Mexico, and the Colorado are all limited to 21 knots. And on the Wyoming and the New York, I didn't really care because the maps were small and none of the enemy ships I was fighting tended to have very long gun ranges. So being slow didn't really matter. Fights came to you and, you know, whatever. It didn't really make that much of a difference. But with the Colorado, enemy ships are starting to get pretty damn fast. Gun ranges are starting to get pretty long. Aircraft carriers, their planes can fly fast and cover a lot of distance and get to you quickly. And with the Colorado, you're not fast enough to keep pace with a moving battle. If you deploy to the wrong side of the map, you're not fast enough to redeploy before everyone is dead or all the enemies have been killed. you can't get away from aircraft because the ship's not really fast enough. So this was the first time where I really felt that the lack of speed was a problem. But even with these weaknesses, which can be pretty detrimental, you can still have a hell of a game in the Colorado. And that's what I want to take a look at right now, is this just absolutely massive game that I played about a week ago in this Tier 7 American battleship. Alright, we are loading into battle in the Colorado. Now, you can see the enemy team. They have 2 aircraft carriers, but one of their carriers is just a Tier 4 Hosho class. So, like I said in the garage about the Colorado's AA just annihilating lower-tiered planes, I can basically ignore that Hosho, because my AA will shred him. You can see the AA batteries all over my ship right now. Back aft by the aft mast and the aft turrets, we have the quad 40 millimeters, and on the forward part of the house we have the twin 40 millimeters with 20 millimeter guns scattered everywhere, as well as the numerous 5-inch guns along the sides of the ship. Now, like I said, this replay is a little bit wonky, so just kind of bear with me here with regards to the camera. So I'm taking the Colorado over towards the A point because that's where usually you fight the enemy battleships on this map. And the Colorado, with its relatively inaccurate guns, you want to be firing as much as you can at large targets that don't move that fast. Also, being as powerful as these guns are, they are really, really good for killing enemy battleships. So that's what I want to focus my efforts on. You can see in my ship's mast that I'm flying a couple of signal flags. One of those signal flags is the equal speed Charlie London flag, which is used to increase experience gained by 50%. So I used that flag for the entirety of my time in this ship in order to get through it quicker, because I'd heard so much about how it was just an absolute dog. So I was actually able to play through this whole ship pretty quickly. Now guys, before we get too much into the action here, I just want to quickly say I will be streaming on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 p.m. Greenwich Time, as well as my scheduled times on Wednesday and Friday. And you can find a link to my Twitch page in the description below.
The enemy team has taken the lead.
So, targets are finally coming into range of the Colorado's 16-inch guns. And my first target is going to be that enemy New York class battleship. Firing a salvo at him right now. Pretty near max range, not expecting to do a lot of damage with this. We do score one hit, but you can clearly hear it bounces off, striking his armor at a pretty shallow angle, failing to do any damage. Now that's the only shot that I hit on an enemy ship in this battle that doesn't penetrate. Now I can see the enemy Colorado class, and being the most powerful battleship on their team, and me being the most powerful battleship on my team, he's a priority target for me. So I focus my fire on the enemy Colorado class and loose a broadside at him at pretty long range, managing to score 4 hits, dealing right around 3,500 damage. All of those hits were superficial damage, just over pens. Now in this fight, I'm going to talk a lot about armor angling and shooting angles and whatnot. And if you want a good example of what I'm talking about, there's a link in the video description to one of iChase Gaming's Captain's Academy videos on armor angling, where you can really see just what I'm talking about when I talk about armor angling and shooting angles. With the enemy Colorado behind an island, I decide to loose a salvo at this New York. We lose sight of him, so I can't really tell what damage my shells are doing, but I do score a few hits, but again, it's just superficial damage. Now, enemy ships are starting to come into my range around this island quite a bit closer, and as I come under fire from the enemy Colorado, I start to turn in to change the angle so that he has less of a chance of scoring Citadel hits on me. But I really do want to be able to fire all my batteries at that Colorado. I call for fire support from my team and unleash a broadside at him. He's giving me an almost perfectly flat angle at a pretty close range, and we managed to Citadel him and deal almost 50% of his HP worth in damage. So that is an excellent, excellent shot. And angling my armor against the New York shots and dodging the fire from the Colorado, I take almost no damage in return, even though I'm now being engaged by 4 enemy ships. Again, calling for fire on the Colorado, I prepare to loose my second broadside. He's still giving me a flat angle, which is very favorable for me, but unfortunately I only hit a few shots, dealing superficial damage. The enemy team is firing away with everything they have and not really causing much harm, but I am beginning to total up a little bit of damage here. So I use my repair as I prepare to fire on this Colorado for the 3rd time in a row. And he still is showing me a flat shooting angle, not defending himself at all. And with that, we put more Citadel hits in and secure a kill and the first blood medal. In that engagement to that enemy Colorado, I did somewhere on the order of 45,000 damage to him, and he only did a few thousand damage back to me. Most of the health I've lost has been to fires caused by this Murmansk in Cleveland. So the Murmansk has been really plaguing me with fires, and he's giving me a really flat shooting angle. So I fire a long-range broadside at him, and managed to score a Citadel hit, shaving off over half of his health. At the same time, my AA batteries are taking out some enemy aircraft. You can see my AA going to work on those dive bombers from the Ranger. Now, the Murmansk is a fast cruiser, and he's not particularly close. But even with the scatter of the Colorado's main guns at this kind of range, by skillful aiming, I am able to really ravage this enemy cruiser. Now on this shot, I don't hit. My shells land just a little behind, and the Alba off my starboard bow misses as well. But we'll see that Murmansk again in a minute or two, and it's not going to go well for him. So now, the enemy New York is approaching. He's on about half health, and he's giving me almost a perfectly flat angle again. So getting such a favorable shooting angle from that enemy battleship, I fire a broadside at him and manage to penetrate his citadel with 2 shells, killing him outright. That was a torpedo bomber wave from the enemy Hosho, and you can see right there, the AA from my Colorado and the Alba near me completely decimated them. They got off 2 torpedoes, which I easily avoided. And there's that Murmansk again coming around the island. Now, I've got a way better shooting angle at this Murmansk than I have at the enemy Cleveland. So instead of shooting at the Cleveland, who is more dangerous, I'm shooting at the Murmansk. Also, I'm fairly confident in my ability to score a Citadel hit on this Murmansk, and in the case that I do Citadel him, he will be killed. And we fire 8 shells at that Murmansk, 7 of them miss, but like I said in the garage, you only need 1 of them to hit where you're aiming, and you can devastate your opponents with this ship. And we managed to secure our 3rd kill on the Murmansk with our 6th Citadel hit of the match. Now at this point, the slow speed of the Colorado really comes into play. I'm not fast enough to chase down that Cleveland class, but he's really the only enemy left over here. So I'm trying to fire at him as much as I can when he gives me the flattest angle possible, just attempting to really deal any damage at all. But because of this, I have to maneuver quite a bit to change from closing the distance to unmasking all my guns. And when you maneuver with the Colorado, you're really only making about 18 knots. And the Cleveland can make close to 36, I think, which gives that Cleveland over a 15 knot speed advantage. So I really will never catch him, unless he comes at me. But he's the only thing really in range that I can engage with any degree of effectiveness. So you just have to pick your shots, wait for the enemy to expose his broadest target area, and do your best. I take my shot at the Cleveland again as he angles himself around, presenting his whole broadside. I managed to score a few superficial hits, but nothing serious. Now right about here, I notice the other Cleveland approaching from my port side, and even though he's farther away, the direction that he's sailing actually makes it easier to hit him. So I decide to traverse over and engage this Cleveland. The other bonus offered by shooting at this Cleveland is I can sail more straight towards the enemy and more effectively close the distance with their remaining ships. So I loose it broadside at the second enemy Cleveland, and managed to score my 7th Citadel hit of the match, taking out almost all of his remaining health, leaving him very near death. You can see that we're winning by a comfortable margin on capture points, and we're about to secure the A point as well. So this battle's really looking pretty much in the bag for our team. We're almost in the cleanup stages of the match. So as the one Cleveland goes down, I loose a broadside at the Wyoming because the Wyoming has more health, and at the time that I fired, he was giving me a better angle to fire at, and there was more potential damage to be done there. In this case, I was kind of using the principle that in World of Tanks I used to call it the artillery principle, where instead of shooting for kills, you shoot for the guy with the most HP, because the cruisers on my team can easily handle those Clevelands on low HP, and if I'd managed to hit even one Citadel on that Wyoming, it would have shaved off half of his remaining health. So I was going for the big damage to just reduce the HP of the enemy as much as possible. Another thing that's good about firing at something like a Wyoming with this ship is the Wyoming's pretty well armored for a Tier 4 battleship, but really against 16-inch guns, the Wyoming can't really resist at all. And right there, I get 2 incapacitations on him, secure the high caliber, but those 3 hits were just for superficial damage, so it wasn't really a big deal that I managed to score those hits. Really all they got me was the medal right at the end of the match. And with that, the match is very close to over. We just have a few more shells to fire at this Wyoming. Nothing else critical is going to happen, and our team is about to make it to 1,000 tickets and win the battle. So really, the only thing left at this stage of the game is to try and just hoover up any points that I can on this dying Wyoming. But he was sailing really slow, and I actually led him by way too much both times. And I'm pretty sure that's it for me in this match. The Wyoming's going to go down really soon, and when he dies, our team will reach 1,000 tickets, and the match will be over. So I'm trying to get one last broadside in on this enemy Wyoming, but I don't really have a good target to shoot at. The way he's sailing, I'll be lucky to even hit a single shell. And right as he starts turning to port, I prepare to fire, but it doesn't really matter because right there, the Wyoming dies as my shells are in flight, and our team reaches 1,000 tickets, and the match ends. So, good win for my team. I have some post-battle results to show, so let's take a look at those. In that match, I managed to scored 29 hits and 7 Citadel hits, shooting down 8 airplanes and securing 3 kills. For that, I got a total of 309,000 credits, 7,500 experience, and first blood and high caliber. I was able to come in top on the team in experience earned, as well as with 3 kills, the most kills in the match. With those 36 hits, 35 of them penetrated for 124,000 damage. Right around 80,000 of that was from the Citadel hits, leaving about 45,000 from everything else. So you can see just how effective even bad battleship guns can be with a skilled player aiming for Citadel hits. And I aimed every single shell that I fired in that match with the objective of scoring a Citadel hit on the enemy, and it paid off. Like I said in the port, you only need 1 shell to land where you aim it. The other 7 can bugger off. As long as one of them goes where you're aiming, that's really all that matters. So even with the pretty terrible guns of the Colorado, we're able to wreck the enemy team. And it was pretty profitable. 269,000 credits is a hell of a lot, and 7,512 experience. Now that was bonused in a number of ways. Like I said, I had the bonus experience flag. I also have a premium account, and there was an event on the North American server giving 2 times experience for the first win of the day instead of the normal 1.5 times. And this was my first win of the day, so that was experience heavily bonused. But still, you can't argue with a result like that, even on a ship which is known to be quite a bad battleship. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that battle. I definitely had a fun time playing it. I hope you'll comment, like, or subscribe, anything like that. It just makes my day to see people actually, interact on my YouTube channel. And I really hope you will check out my stream. Like I said, links to my stream and to iChase's Captain's Academy video on armor angling in the video description. Hope to see you guys on the channel or on the Twitch stream later. And until that time, guys, just remember, you can never have enough big guns.